Hey, so in the previous session of React.js series, we have covered what do we mean by useState hook and how we can actually implement useState hook. We have also seen a very popular example in which we have used useState hook, and that example was totally of like expanding and like contracting a particular keyword, and we have implemented that thing. हमने उस चीज़ को अच्छे से देख रखी है, and in this lecture we will be talking about another example of use state only. तो मैं उस चीज़ की थोड़ी सी आइडिया दे दूँ आप लोगों को. तो this example which we'll be building right now is just a simple increment and decrement project. It's not a kind of project, it's just an example, and I want you to see all these examples that are related to a particular use state hook only, ताकि आप लोगों को किसी भी तरीके की दिक्कत ना आए. ओके, सो हम क्या करेंगे, इंक्रीमेंट एंड डिक्रीमेंट की फंक्शनैलिटी बनाएंगे जो काफ़ी सारे यूट्यूबर्स ऑलरेडी कर रहे हैं. ओके, तो इस चीज़ को बनाने के लिए व्हाट वी वांट कि हमारे पास दो बटन हो एंड एक इंक्रीमेंट का, वन फॉर इंक्रीमेंट, अनदर फॉर डिक्रीमेंट. ओके, इंक्रीमेंट एंड डिक्रीमेंट के लिए होगा. इंक्रीमेंट जब करूँगा मैं तो इंक्रीमेंट होगा, एंड जब मैं डिक्रीमेंट पे क्लिक करूँगा तो वो डिक्रीमेंट करे कोई पार्टिकुलर वैल्यू को. डन, इतना समझ आ गया. नाउ लेट्स jump onto the VS Code and let's see how we can implement the following. Okay, so मैंने अपना VS Code खोल लिया and you also know that मेरे पास दो folders हैं. फर्स्ट हमारा फोल्डर है प्रोजेक्ट का and we are not covering project right now. so मैं टेस्टिंग में गया, मैं react1 नाम के फोल्डर में इंटर किया. यहाँ पे मेरे पास जो मेन फाइल है वो index.js है. दूसरी फाइल जो है वो मैं app.js को यूज़ कर रहा हूँ just for implementing the thing, right? We are not making our project, we are not like viewing another hooks, we are just talking about use state hook. तो एग्जाम्पल, ये पहले वाली एग्जाम्पल है जो मैंने कल इसको कंप्लीट किया था. आज हम दूसरा एग्जाम्पल देखते हैं. इसको मैं क्लियर आउट कर लूँ एक बार. ओके, एंड लेट मी क्लियर दिस आउट. डन, एंड आई थिंक we are done with this. Okay, so let's refresh, and once we have refreshed, everything gone out. So अब हम क्या करते हैं, अब मुझे जैसा मैंने बताया उसी के हिसाब से हम अपनी चीज़ों को इम्प्लीमेंट करेंगे. So फर्स्ट थिंग क्या, मुझे एक कोई वेरिएबल चाहिए, वेरिएबल में कुछ डेटा शो करवाना है. तो व्हाट वी कैन डू इज़, एक तो आप यहाँ पे रिटर्न से पहले ही डिक्लेयर करवा सकते हो लेट काउंट इज इक्वल टू कुछ भी, लेट काउंट इज इक्वल टू 0. ओके, एंड चीज़ें में प्रॉब्लम कहाँ आई, मैं यूज स्टेट हुक का क्यों यूज़ कर रहा हूँ ये भी मैं शायद अभी बताऊँ आपको. एंड यहाँ पे आप h2 के अंदर ये लिख सकते हो काउंट वैल्यू इज काउंट. So now आपको देखने को मिल रहा होगा काउंट वैल्यू इज 0, एंड ऑन चेंजिंग द डिफॉल्ट वैल्यू ऑफ दिस काउंट लाइक 10, आई एम मेकिंग इट 10. सो अब मुझे क्या शो होगा, 10. ओके, ये चीज़ें समझ आ गई. अब व्हाट आई वांट कि मेरे पास दो बटन हो. लेट्स, आई एम टेकिंग अ बटन. ओके, just a minute. Okay, I have taken one button, and inside this I'll write increment, and I'll just replicate it once again with shift alt and down, and I'll just write decrement लिखना है मुझे, decrement. Okay, so we have done this. Now let's check it out whether it's working or not. Yes. If you want to give some internal padding like inline styling, so what we can prefer? If you want to do inline styling, we can do style is equal to, and under double quotes, double curly braces, what we can write is let's see, a margin would be around 10 pixel. That's enough, and that should be in quotes. Done. Okay, working perfectly fine. Now what we are doing, what we have to do is, like on click of that button, on click of the increment button, what I want is to increment the value of this count. Okay, so I will be attaching one event listener. What I will be doing is, I will be attaching an event listener, and I have already told what do we mean by event listeners. Event listeners, this is the property, this is the method, this is the API that browsers use, not browsers, it's browsers. Okay, so now what event listener we will be using is on click. Understood? Let's jump onto this. I'll be using on click, and here I want to call a function like increment me. Okay, and on click of this decrement button, I'll just copy this on click event listener, and I'll just paste it here in decrement, and I'll change it to decrement. Okay, decrement me, increment me, and decrement me. I just want to call this function on clicking on this button. Okay, and just declare this variable, function here, and I'll be using a fat arrow function for this. Just write this, and what I want is to, like, I want to increment the value of the count that we have already initialized. Okay, and just consoling this out, incremented, and doing the same for decrement me function. Okay, and let decrement me is count is equal to count minus 7, and just console it out, decremented. Right now it must be okay, giving problem of useState. Let's cut this out, and just a minute, remove this, and it will be working very fine. So now let's open console and refresh it once. I'm clicking on increment, look it very carefully. When I'm clicking on this increment button, we got a console log of incremented, and when I am again clicking on increment, look, component is re-rendered itself. And when I am clicking on decrement, so decrement will be called again and again, because my state is changing. Okay, मेरा state change हो रहा है. But the thing that you will notice here is the value of this count is not changing. Why is it so? Look, I have written this logic, and it should work very fine, and it's working very fine. But the main problem is that UI is not changing according to the functionality, according to the logic that we have written. Okay, so this is the main problem with basic JavaScript. Okay, and we have used the logic only. We have just used the JS logic, but in this case UI is not rendered, or we can say DOM manipulation is not done efficiently. Okay, DOM manipulation is not done efficiently. So in order to tackle with this UI problem, I want this UI to change every time I click on increment, I click on decrement. I want this to change. So how can I perform? So this is the main problem, and I just wanted my UI to change every time I click on increment and decrement. So for this, useState hook is defined. Okay, and now the major role of useState has been introduced, and let's import it from React first. React library, useState. useState is a hook, and what I will be doing is I will just, okay, where I will initialize the count here. So just now I will be using useState const, and you already know what is the syntax of useState hook. Count and set count. Count and set count is equal to useState, and I have initialized the value as 0. Okay, and I'm using this count as here, means I'm using this count value here in h2, and initially its value has been initialized to 0. Okay, now I want to render, I want my UI to change according to my event, according to my increment and decrement button. So for this, what I will do, I will just update my I will just update this value from 0 to another value. Okay, let's say to update the value I will be using the set count function, and you already know that first count is a variable and set count is a function. So for this I'll just update the value of count. Okay, and here also in the decrement part, decrement me set count is equal to count, because I'm decrementing it the value, and here in this logic I'm incrementing the value. Got it? So now I think it should work very fine. Okay, let's see if it's working fine or not. Let's see, I'm refreshing it once again. I'm incrementing the value. Okay, type error, assignment to constant variable. Okay. Okay, so we can do one thing. It is giving me the problem, so do one thing. Instead of incrementing this here, instead of doing this here, what I'll be doing is take it into a function, and let's do count plus 1. Count plus 1. Will it work very fine? I don't think so, but let's try it out. It might work. Count minus 1 in decremented form. Count minus 1. Okay, again I think it will give us a problem. No, it's working fine. But in the case of decrement, what was the problem? What was the problem? Okay, so let's remove this out, and yes, now it's working very fine. Okay, our logic is working very fine, whether increment or decrement. Okay, so we have done this so far, and now on moving to decrement, if I'm decrementing it below 0, it's going to negative. For this, what we can do in order to stop this from going to negative values, let's do okay, can we write a logic here? If count is equal to 0, just return it out. Okay, let's check whether it's working or not. Okay, expected. Okay, got it. Now let's check it out. I'm incrementing the value, and on decrement Okay, now it's working very fine, and it's not, the value is not going beyond 0. Okay, so our logic is working fine. So this is the thing that I wanted to show you, that how you can implement the thing according to use state hook. And still, if you find any kind of problem in implementation or any other logic that you might feel that okay, I want to implement this using use state hook, so just comment it out and we'll see in the next lecture definitely. Okay, so see you in the next lecture.